we're back. Of course, that was some Social Distortion. That last song, Machine Gun Blues, is off their album Hard Times and Nursery Rhymes, and the music video for it is amazing. They basically took the over-dramatized gangster movie, made it into a music video, had actual guns in the video, probably using blanks, but they had real guns in the video. There was a whole, bank robbery involved in the video. It was just such a good video that they created, and this was them, kind of coming back from a long hiatus, and people were all excited to see them. Hopefully I can see them in concert at some point, but on wrestling, something major happened over the last few days. Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho is set for Wrestle Kingdom 12. Now, for a little bit of history, of course, Kenny Omega is the leader of the Bullet Club, the current leader, because AJ Styles left to go to WWE. But Kenny Omega has been a great leader, and of course, there he is. He's the young lion, big talent. Now, most heels in non-Japan are usually non-Japanese. Well, there are Japanese heels. There's always heels and faces in wrestling. Doesn't matter where you are at in the world. But now I lost my train of thought. Oh, no, I got it. But most of the time, Americans will be heels. Hence, why the Bullet Club is a thing. It's basically all the foreigners in one place being heels. So last week, I don't know if it was a pay-per-view or something, or just some general weekly TV that they do out there. They were, Kenny Omega was cutting a promo. The Young Bucks, of course, Nick and Matt Jackson were both in the ring with him. He was cutting a promo on the crowd in English, of course, so, that's going to bring you more heat, especially in a foreign country. He did speak Japanese at some points in the promo, and of course I didn't understand that. But then on the screen there's a countdown, and everyone knows what the countdown is, because originally when Chris Jericho came to WWF back in, did he debut? No, I think he came in either 1999 or 2000. That's when a lot of people were jumping ship from there. WCW, such a long history that I will get into one day. And at that point, there was a countdown, and Chris Jericho appears on the screen and, again, cut a promo. There were Japanese subs, so the audience could read. It was like the giant Titantron, so the audience could read the promo he was cutting on Kenny Omega. So that means Chris Jericho is going to be the first time he's wrestling in New Japan in over, he wrestled there in the early 90s. It's been a long time, and now, this match is very exciting because Chris Jericho has been in WWE for such a long time, and even though he has more of a part-time schedule, he'll work a full schedule for a couple of months, then take a break, because he does have a rock band, Fozzy. They'll go on tour, and since he is also old, wrestling does take a toll on your body. So if you're older, you'll take a part-time just so you can rest a bit more and not be as broken down, but as I said, this match is going to be extremely exciting. It's been kind of a hyped match, and with Jericho going to Japan, it makes people wonder, could other stars in WWE go to Japan to have a match? Because there was a couple of years ago at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 1, which I was there for, it was a great show, that Jushin Thunder Liger did show up and have a match with Tyler Breeze, and he was allowed to do that. I mean, when you're a veteran in the business, you kind of have a little bit more freedom. Now, of course, if there are things in your contract that say you can't go to another fan and do things, that's there. But veterans, they do have a more lenient thing. You could go finish, I don't know, you could go have a podcast or things like that. But as I said, this match is going to be very exciting, and Wrestle Kingdom takes place on, I'm going to look that up so I can tell you all, if you do want to wake up at 5 in the morning during your winter break to watch wrestling. Yep, we're on 12 right now. And as I said, that's the big match, because they did bring a new title. It's the New Japan US title. Now, there's been a US title in the Feds for years now, and it was originally a WCW NWA title. WWE did bring it when of course WCW folded in 2001. They did bring the US title when they had the brand separated, SmackDown, Raw. They kind of kept the US title, the main WWE title, and then of course they had their own set of tag titles, but on the main roster they did have Old Big Gold, which is probably one of the most attractive belts of all time. So it is January 4th. If you want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to watch pro wrestling, and I recommend you do, because last year I woke up at 7 Well, that was more of my allergies, and I think I had a cold. Like, I straight up couldn't breathe. I was so congested I couldn't breathe. I woke up and watched Kenny Omega versus Okada, and I do not regret a second of that, even though if it was 7 in the morning. Wow. I didn't realize how fast the show was going. I was just sitting here playing music, and now it is almost 12:50 p.m. So, on the bit of the news, of course, there was another shooting. I'm really surprised how many. It seems like every week there's something. Like there was the truck going through the bike lane in New York City where 8 people died, and this week there was a gunman who killed 26 people and injured 20 in a church in a Texas town a couple of miles outside of San Antonio. Trying to remember all the details, because here's the thing about this guy. He was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force because of a domestic violence charge. And actually, if you do get a domestic violence charge, that basically says you can't buy a gun. So this guy clearly did not buy his gun in a legal manner, because they would have seen on his application, have you committed a crime before? That's one of the questions they ask when you're trying to buy a firearm of some kind. And if you say yes to that, you cannot buy a gun. So with him, he obviously got the gun illegally. He went in, he opened fire, and only later, when there was a neighbor who had been hearing the commotion, who was nearby the church, he had his own gun. He went and threatened the guy with the gun, probably, not shoot him, but, just show that, oh, I'm here, I have this gun here. And the guy fled off, and that's eventually when the police got to him. He killed himself, and it's extremely depressing how many shootings there have been in the last couple of months, and/or tragedies. They don't necessarily have to involve guns. They could be, bombings, things like that. Hopefully there will be a small break from all of that. So, let's see what else is going on. And funny enough, Jameis Winston, he was a very bright spot on the Tampa Bay line last year. He had a good season. They did make playoffs for the first time in a while, especially since Tampa Bay, they've been like kind of a bad team for a while. But of course, he re-injured his shoulder, and we lost to the Saints, and luckily that helped my fantasy team. I did have Winston at first on my fantasy team, but I got rid of him when I eventually was very blessed to have Alex Smith and the whole Kareem Hunt, Hill. I have that whole line on my fantasy team right now. I'm very afraid for my bye week, because I had Deshaun Watson as my backup quarterback, because usually you'll have 2 quarterbacks just in case one's on a bye week. You could just shove the other one in. Watson, of course, tore his ACL, and you know what tearing your ACL means? You're out for a whole year trying to rehab it, and now that means I have to go digging up for another quarterback during waivers. And for those of you who do not know what a waiver is, what will happen is, usually it's Tuesday night, depending on your league. You'll go in and say, you'll look through the queue of players that are available, because at the beginning of every fantasy football season, you will have a draft with the group of people that you're playing with. It could be in person, it could be online, depending again on how big your league is, if everyone is in like the same places you. Like, for example, mine was my dorm floor. It's the Hale 6-4 Fantasy Football League. With that, of course, everyone was in the room during the draft. We were kind of watching each other's picks, but that usually isn't the case with other people. You'll sometimes have your drafts where you're not in the same room as everyone else, because, I don't know, you could be participating in an online league where, like, I don't know, there's money on the line, and everyone is in, like, you could be playing with people from different parts of your state, different states overall, and so waivers, going back to that, if you want to get rid of one of your players, say one of your players get injured. I did watch someone have Odell Beckham Jr. get injured on their team. So Odell Beckham Jr. is injured and out for the season. So what you do is you go digging through a queue of players. You could look based on their how many points they've gotten over the last week. You can see their general stats, like how many yards, how good the receiving is, if you're trying to go for a receiving player. And then you'll also have to look at their schedule, because sometimes what could happen is you could have a hard schedule, which is the case for a lot of teams, because schedules are kind of random. Of course, you'll have 2 games within your division. So the Giants, they'll play the Chiefs twice, the Cowboys twice, the Eagles twice in their season, and then what will happen is they'll play basically games with everyone else in their league overall. And what you'll do, of course, checking all those stats, you'll go on for a waiver, because sometimes what the case will be is maybe someone will want the same player as you that's available during the waiver. So if you get into the waiver first, and you could do this for multiple players. It doesn't have to be the beautiful computer has gone out on me again. Hold on 1 second. There you go. I got my computer back. That thing logs out on me all day if I'm not playing with the mouse. Of course, people don't see on this thing. It's a Ustream, obviously people know, but you do have to have the computer on just so you could see yourself. If you were going to play music, things like that, you need your computer on. But as I said with the waivers, you could put the priority on if there's a really good player that you want and you have someone that you're dumping. You could say for the same person, in case you don't get that specific player, you could have the same player being replaced with different people. And of course, that's what I'm going to do this week. I'm going to go hunt down a quarterback. I don't know if I'm going to get a new defense because Baltimore did well for me last week. Oh, my lineup. I could tell you my lineup on my fantasy team. I'll just tell you it right now. It's really fast. Of course, I beat my opponent out this week. I would have had a perfect record if I had actually looked at my lineup. Usually, what I'll do is I'll switch people who are on a bye week, which means your team isn't playing, and holy cow, that is something. So, who do I have? I have Alex Smith, I have Kareem Hunt, I have Carlos Hyde, I have Mike Evans, Tariq Hill, Evan Ingram, Kamara, who is on New Orleans. He gave me 31 points this week. I have Baltimore's defense. I have Greg Zuerlein, who is on the Rams, and I was very lucky I picked him because they scored so much on the Giants. The funny thing is, what I noticed with the Giants over the years is that people will have their record games, or people will break their personal best or something if they're playing the Giants. And this could happen even if the Giants are having a good year. I have honestly no idea why this occurs with the Giants. It's really strange. But, of course, since the regular football season, we're actually at the halfway point in the season because it's 16 games total, unless, of course, you move on to the playoffs or whatever. But for those of you still playing fantasy football, I wish you luck. I hope nobody gets injured. Of course, like me, I lost a transcendent talent. I know. Depressing. I lost a great talent, and he will not be playing until next year. Who else is on the line? Oh, I'd like to shout out my friend who's constantly persuading me to get into hockey. Wow, my show's almost over. I'm trying to think of something. Oh! One last thing. Of course, I mentioned the National High School Cheerleading Championship. This is UCA's, not NCA's. NCA's, their process to get a bid to go to their nationals, which is in Dallas, Texas. I honestly don't think that's that attractive compared to Disney World. Like, Disney World seems fun. Even if you're going there to be a spectator, you could go to the parks and all that stuff, go on Space Mountain, whatever. But UCA regionals have been popping up over the last few weeks because teams, what they'll do is compete for a bid. You need to hit a certain score, like on your routine, the score could be, 70. So if you get a 70 and above, you will get a bid even if you don't place like a trophy, because some competitions, depending on what division you're in, can be extremely competitive. Of course, I mentioned that because this weekend is the Northeast Regional and the Bluegrass Regional, one taking place in Toms River, New Jersey, which is where I used to go. My grandma used to live there. I used to go to Seaside. And then the other one is in Lexington, Kentucky. And of course, Kentucky is extremely known for their cheerleading teams. They just have some of the best in the world. Of course, you could talk the University of Kentucky. You could talk about University of Louisville. And with them, there are huge divisions full of teams, names that you might know. Paula and Dunbar, people know because they had that show on Lifetime, and of course, I watched the show. It's like how cheerleaders, they watch Bring It On, and you probably could recite the movie if you're a cheerleader. Oh, wow, 2-minute warning. I'm really sad that I gotta leave, y'all. I actually enjoy doing this, and radio is extremely fun. If you've never done it and you have an opportunity to do it, I suggest you try it out. You will have a great time. You could spin whatever you want. And, well, people usually co-host. I have a solo show because I think it's more fun, and I couldn't find a partner, but that's fine. I enjoyed going solo. But just quickly, if you're competing at regionals somewhere out there, I wish you luck. I hope your routine's hit. I hope nobody falls. I hope nobody gets injured. just hopefully. And with that, I will say goodbye to all of you. I'll see you next week. Oh, one last thing. There's a hockey movie going on in Romita. It's actually next week on November 15th. The creator of the movie, it's NHL's 100th anniversary. The league started in 1917. They're going to do, they're showing this documentary. It's premiering in Romita Library. Hold on. I'm going to read this. Let me just read this email before I run into... Okay, so it's on November 15th, and Ross Greenberg's NHL 100 documentary will be shown on November 15th at the Romita Auditorium, which, of course, as everyone knows, is in Ryan Library. So if you're a hockey fan or you're like me and you want to learn more about the history of the NHL, I suggest you try to go to this event unless you have a class, even though secretly I'm skipping a class to go to this because hockey seems more fun than whatever I have at that time. So with that, I'd like to say goodbye to all of you. I hope you have a good week. Just look at the end of the tunnel. Thanksgiving is in a couple of weeks. You'll get to go home. You'll get to chill a little before the magical period known as finals comes upon us. So with that, peace out, people.